Good fucking evening, you podcast junkies and seekers of all things absurd. Welcome back to Podcast Hell, the show where we dissect the most batshit interviews and bizarre guests in the world of podcasts. I'm your host, Max, and tonight we're diving headfirst into the train wreck that is Joe Rogan's recent guest, Kid Rock. Joe Rogan, the goddamn king of long-form interviews and stoner rants, but even he couldn't prepare us for the shit show that ensued when he invited none other than Kid fucking Rock onto his podcast. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for diverse guests and open-minded discussions, but this was a whole new level of podcast hell. Let's start with Kid Rock himself, the walking, talking embodiment of white trash culture. With his backwards hats, American flag tank tops, and cringeworthy attempts at rapping, he's managed to carve out a niche for himself in the annals of shitty music history. But apparently that wasn't enough for him. He had to go and grace us with his presence on the podcast scene too. And then there's Joe Rogan, the man who needs no introduction. With his penchant for pseudo-intellectual ramblings and love of all things weed-related, he's become the poster child for the modern-day stoner philosopher. But even he couldn't save this dumpster fire of an interview from crashing and burning. So what can we learn from this unholy union of Rogan and Rock? Well, for one, some guests are better left uninvited. And secondly, just because you have a podcast doesn't mean you have to subject your listeners to every washed-up has-been with a microphone. But hey, who am I to judge? Maybe next week, Joe Rogan will have a fucking clown on his podcast. Oh wait, he already did. That's all for tonight's episode of Podcast Hell. Join us next time as we dive into another mind-numbingly awful interview that'll make you question why the hell you even bothered to press play. Until then, stay podcasting, my friend.